Hi, my name is Stephen Tronichek, and I'm with HorrOrigins.com. HorrOrigins is a website where you can find articles, reviews, and interviews. We also run our very own screenplay competition and film festival. Today, I'm talking with Stefanie Scott, who is the star of the new film, The Last Thing Mary Saw. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I typically like to start, talking about these. I typically like to start these interviews by talking about what drew actors to the horror genre. You've obviously worked in a few films like that, Insidious Chapter 3, Girl in the Basement, now this. What kind of draws you towards the genre?
I don't know if it's particularly the genre that I'm like searching for, but it kind of just works out that way when a script is really good and it really draws you in. I think that's the one thing that those three movies all had in common was it was actually a really good story and pretty powerful and had a really good driving force behind it. And they're all very different as well. Yeah, I guess I just kind of like the people I worked with, and that's kind of how it worked out. And it's always fun messing around with blood and different gags and stuff too. It's never boring when stuff like that is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually find similarly, it's really about the people you're working with. And I too
Yeah.
love working with blood and gags. It's like, it's just fantastic.
It's
Why
really
not do the fun stuff?
I don't know. I feel like I'm like in middle school or elementary school when we're all like playing with ketchup and like it's really fun. I mean, it just like looks a lot more real.
So it actually kind of leads nicely into this next question about uh you spent a lot of this movie blindfolded
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
working with the
Proud of
effects and it and just having worked with actors or done acting, it's like you that's a big hindrance. That's like where's
Yeah.
your eye line going? What are you doing? It just had me wondering how you approach scenes like that, because yeah, I mean it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I don't really know, to be honest with you. It was kind of helpful. I felt like I was meditating and super present because by the time Mary can't see anymore, um, she isn't really Mary anymore. It's kind of something else sort of emerges from her, whether that is actually supernatural or if it's just a completely different state of mind. She lost her vision and kind of some other sense kind of comes through her. So I don't know. I guess it was kind of helpful in a way. There were days though where I guess spoiler alert, but like Mary loses her eyesight kind of.
Oh no.
Yeah, so something obviously happens to her eyes, the last thing Mary saw. But I when you see that happen, I had prosthetics over my eyes and I really, they put them on in the morning and then I went like 12 to 15 hours completely actually blind, where I was like being led around the old house and I was wearing these really old clothes, so it was kind of hard to navigate everything and use the restroom with my really long skirt and apron and stuff and my bonnet. So it was kind of funny to have those days without seeing anything, but it felt really good when I took them off. I was able to see again.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think that preparing for a role is like always a huge part of an actor's job. And this is kind of a complex role. You know, you have, of course, the period piece aspect to it. You have all that stuff. And I was just wondering what your general process for preparing for this role was.
For this role, I worked a lot with Eduardo on kind of finding a specific voice too. Obviously, it took place in 1843, and so there were kind of there was a very light accent. Obviously, she doesn't have a full accent because they've been in America for a while, but that was like another challenge of it, was the parents would have a stronger accent, and it would also be different from Isabel's because she comes from elsewhere, and there really isn't much. Can't really find anything online from the early 1800s of how they spoke. I think there's like 1 to 2 voice recordings, and they're really grainy. So, and it wasn't a woman's voice either. So that was something that was really fun to work on, and, you know, to be sending him things and hear what he wants. And he sent us some good films, and that was most of the preparation, just kind of getting the lines down and the rhythm with the voice. And other than that, once we got there, we kind of just went for it and started filming.
Yeah, I always find it so interesting, like the process of actors interacting with each other and interacting with the director. And this is really an intense chamber drama. Like, it all happens very closely. And it had me wondering about if you felt like the different actors bringing different styles into this intense chamber drama, and whether or not you felt like your style of acting was different from maybe Isabel's or Rory's or anything like that that's going on around the set.
I don't know if it was like a matter of styles. We all worked pretty closely together and kind of just held space for each other. I think the only difference was Rory, he filmed all of his scenes in only one day. So, and he's so incredible too. So, I think it was maybe one of the last 2 or 3 days you were there. I could be wrong, but you know, Isabel and I have known each other for a really long time. So we're joking around a lot because we're pretty good friends, and we were living together when we were making the movie. So we were just, you know, like 2 schoolgirls, whatever, like cracking up. It would kind of make Eduardo, I think, a little, he was fine by the end, like with our like girly laughing and stuff. But I think at the beginning he was like, this is to be more serious. But Rory, he came in and, you know, blew everyone away. He was so incredible. And I think that kind of like shocked us back to the present, you know, which was kind of actually nice to have him there.
Yeah, I always think about like directors and how they're always like so intensely into the emotion of the scene or so, and then how that really interacts with the actors.
Yeah.
But I love set stories, and you've already been kind enough to share quite a few like really fun little tidbits about that. And I wanted to ask about what you think was your favorite story of your favorite day on set, because these little productions are always so fun.
Yeah. Well, something that's not so fun that you might think is funny is there's a lot of so Isabel and I, you kind of notice halfway through the film, kind of trade clothes. She gets shunned, and as do I, and I then have to serve the house, and I wear her serving clothes. We wore the same costume, like they didn't make 2 or anything because they wanted it to be more real, I guess. And it was really gross because, as you could see in the movie, she's plucking a dead chicken. And it was like, I think they cleaned them and stuff, but the day that we used it the same day, there was just like everything smelled like gross dead chicken. It was very realistic because in the movie, obviously, it's, you know, very old and plucking chickens, making bread, all that stuff. So there was like chicken juice all over this dress. And then on top of that, her and I had to like make out, obviously, in the hay. And that was another day we were using chickens. So we were just kissing, and everything smelled so bad. And we were just covered in hay, and it was like the least glamorous thing maybe ever. It looks like super hot, you know, in the movie, us making out and stuff. But like, if you're really there, it smelled really bad.
Yeah, those are always the best, those stories like where it's like, look at the contrast here. Let's see how that goes. And you mentioned that you're a big fan of working with the blood and the
Yeah.
guts and everything like that. And that's always a good circumstance with that contrast. And I love that stuff. And I wanted to ask about where it kind of if there was anything entertaining or funny or anything cool that happened around that blood and all of that interesting practical effects stuff.
Hmm. I mean, I don't know about the whole story with not being able to see was pretty interesting, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of blood in it, and I can't really give away the end, but that was pretty
Right.
to watch it actually being filmed. Um, so I just kind of had to stand there the whole time and observe what was going on, and it was a mess. It was such a mess. Obviously, when you see the movie, you'll see why it's just such a disaster. Just kind of shit goes crazy. And that was really fun to watch, and there were a lot of really cool gags to make that happen. So it's pretty impressive what people can come up with on a whim too. If something doesn't, these gags are so technical. Every once in a while, something might not work the way you expect it to with a certain angle or something. So the way people can improvise is very impressive to make something look real like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, here's a bunch of blood. Now clean it up and do another take or something.
Oh, that too, right? No, this is gonna take me like 4 hours.
Right, right.
Stain.
So, lastly, something that I love about the film is kind of a level of ambiguity going on in it. There's some questions that aren't exactly answered for the audience, as far as like who's specifically creating a situation. Again, I don't want to give away the ending as well, but it's kind of interesting. I was wondering how you approach that ambiguity from like an actor's standpoint, whether or not it's just talking with the director or discussing with other actors and kind of, building that up.
I think it has a lot to do with the director in this case, and in other cases, I think it's interesting when a director wants to speak to actors separately, and so we kind of have our own thing going on also. And because that's kind of how life is too. Everyone has such a different perspective of things that we probably are all looking at the same thing very, very differently. So I do think that's interesting when a director will speak to us separately and we kind of all bring our own thing to the table. And I do think Eduardo did that a bit. He did a really good job doing so. Yeah.
Do you feel like there were any specific moments where you feel like you're kind of like one person might have been on one page and the other person the other?
I do. I don't know exactly when, and that when, watching the movie back is obviously very different from when you're filming.
Right.
Because as soon as you're filming something, you totally think it's one way and you watch it back, you're like, whoa, that's totally different than I was, experiencing it at the time. I think you notice that a lot with maybe Mary's father in it. And that's something I noticed too. His, final scene in the movie, when the movie is kind of towards the end, he surprised me a lot in a really good way, to where like kind of like my interpretation of who my dad was in the movie, and then kind of seeing him bring this whole other aspect to it at the end was really, really beautiful to watch.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. All righty. That's actually all the questions that I have, but absolutely. I just want to thank you so much again for, sitting down and talking with me. I've really enjoyed hearing the stories. It's just fantastic.
Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed them. I hope I didn't sound too all over the place with them.
No, you certainly didn't. I'm gonna real quickly just give the same HorrOrigins, spiel or so, and then I'll wrap up here. All righty. This has been Stephen Shoneychek for HorrOrigins.com. HorrOrigins is a website where you can find articles, reviews, and interviews. We also run our own screenplay competition and film festival. This has been Stefanie Scott. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All righty. Thank you so much.
Bye.